The news that no action will be taken against Enzo Fernandez by Chelsea for the video that he posted after the Copa America final is unsurprising, but it's also shameful. It highlights the hypocrisy at the heart of Chelsea Football Club when it comes to racism and bad behaviour. Enzo Fernandez is a multi-millionaire, and what we have learned from this incident is that he is essentially above recrimination because he is of too much value to the club, simply by being an expensive asset, an asset that needs protecting at all costs. He is above denunciation. That's the club. That's Chelsea. Maybe that's football now. That is the world that we are living in. In this post-FFP world, where players seem to be seen as assets and all decisions are made, regardless of how abhorrent, through a financial lens. Let's just imagine this scenario. Just bear with me on this. Pretend for 1 second that Enzo Fernandez wasn't apparently a brilliant footballer and a player that is worth 100 million quid. Pretend that he is a normal fellow with a season ticket in the Matthew Harding lower tier. Now, pretend that he was caught on film singing a vile song about Chelsea players of African descent. What do you think the recriminations would be? How do you think Chelsea would react? What sort of statement would Chelsea make to this fan? Chelsea would undoubtedly push for the strictest and most severe penalty. The fan would be banned from Stamford Bridge for life, and the fan would be banned from all football grounds in the country for a minimum of 5 years. And rightly so. Can you imagine how Chelsea would react? How Chelsea would clamp down on this fan? How Chelsea would tell the world that this sort of behaviour is completely unacceptable at Stamford Bridge? Enzo Fernandez, in this imaginary scenario, that Enzo Fernandez isn't an asset, isn't a £100 million asset. He is just a normal guy with a season ticket in the Matthew Harding. In this imaginary scenario where Enzo Fernandez is a fan, he would have to hand his passport into the nearest police station every time both Chelsea and England played abroad. And he wouldn't be allowed within 5 miles of whatever ground Chelsea were playing at on a Saturday afternoon. So I think we all agree that the action that Enzo Fernandez did, the offensive song that was sung, the offensive song that Enzo Fernandez sung on a live stream, if he were to do that in the stand, he wouldn't be allowed within 5 miles of Stamford Bridge when Chelsea are playing. But because he is an asset, because Clearlake have spent well over 100 million quid on him, the principle goes out the window. And therefore, it is not a principle. What is the definition of a principle? A principle is what you do when no one else is looking. A principle is what you do when times are hard. Standing up for something when it doesn't matter is easy. Banning an insignificant fan from the Matthew Harding lower is easy. But sweeping your assets' transgressions under the carpet is pathetic and completely in keeping with its ownership. Imagine the statement that Chelsea would put out if this exact same song was sung by one fan in the ground. They would put out a statement strongly condemning the individual, and they would underline the fact that Chelsea are a football club who take the issue of racism incredibly seriously. And we would say that we are making a stand here today because of this abhorrent song that was sung. Do you think a fan would have the opportunity to get rid of this issue by simply making a donation to an anti-racism charity? Do you think a fan would be able to get rid of this issue by attending a course designed to educate them? Of course not. And rightly so, because the penalty must be severe. But the hypocrisy is, the penalty is only severe if the offender is of no value. That's the point. The penalty is only severe if the offender is of no value. A fan in the stand, ban them all. An asset, where we have to make a stand, maybe take a financial hit? Absolutely not. Charlatans. If a fan was arrested for racism and that fan suggested that they would make a meaningful donation to an anti-racism charity, that suggestion would be laughed at. But for Fernandez, it's deemed an appropriate response. Imagine the fan trying to just hold their hands up and apologise. Do you think they'd be let back in the ground? No, and rightly so. So why is Fernandez? I've used quite an extreme example there to demonstrate the point, the fan versus Enzo Fernandez. But I actually believe it would be different if it were a player who were deemed of less value by Clearlake. Say this were a young player from the academy. Let's pretend it was Gilchrist. I think he's sacked. Say it's an older squad player coming towards the end of their contract. I believe that Clearlake will sack them. Basically, anywhere where there is less of a financial incentive to keep the player and keep the player happy, I think that Clearlake would have been tripping over themselves to make an example of the player and reinforce the statement that Chelsea do not accept racism. But it's Fernandez, and Fernandez is worth a lot of money, and therefore it's completely different. You know what? I've battered Chelsea on this, and rightly so. But I also don't believe that any Premier League club would handle this issue differently. There have been sickening examples at Arsenal and Manchester United recently that would suggest that they would follow suit and behave exactly the way that Chelsea have behaved here. Sometimes football can just feel so hateful, can't it? Unfortunately, Whilst football wants to appear to be a moral arbiter of society for all manner of issues, and the Premier League and its clubs can organise as many anti-racism, anti-homophobia, anti-misogyny campaigns as they like, ultimately what we have learned is that all of these campaigns are completely meaningless when it actually matters. These campaigns can feel like they are the most important thing in the world until they actually matter. There is nothing more important in football than equality up until it impacts somebody's wallet. It also shows that in our game, millionaires can literally buy their way out of trouble. Surely if there's one accusation where money isn't the answer, it's racism. Good footballers can basically say anything they like, but then make a donation to an anti-racism charity. Case closed. And I tell you what, that message is sickening. How's that going to be received by the younger fans of the club? Throw money at any problem that you create in life and that problem will go away. Basically, there is no problem in life that you can create that can't be solved by littering money at the problem. If you can splurge your disgusting money all over the place, there is no such thing as consequence. That's the lesson that we've learned today. But isn't it depressing? Because racism is a scourge in our society. And it's great that so much work has been done to eradicate it from our national game. But what Chelsea's decision regarding Enzo Fernandez appears to show in football is that racism isn't quite as bad or quite as important if a club have spent 120 million quid on you and given you an 8-year contract. There we go. They are my thoughts on the matter. It's another bleak day for football and another grim day for Chelsea Football Club. Sick of it.